Hey guys, Brent Boyer from Adam again. So let's talk divorce. Wanted to talk about an issue that comes up pretty frequently in discussion with clients about their divorce and how things are proceeding going forward. So there's this question of, can I get exclusive use of the home? In other words, their wife has moved out temporarily, or maybe she's been gone for a while, and whatever the case might be with the current arrangement, they find themselves living in the house that they were formerly sharing with their wife. They're now living in that home alone. And they want to know, well, how do I deal with this? Can I get a court order that gives me exclusive use of the home? Meaning, can I get a document? Can I, do I have the right to change the locks and just live there exclusively, live there by myself and not have my wife coming and going? We're getting divorced, we're not together anymore, and I want to be able to do things that way. And before I forget, make sure you do click like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So this question comes up related to this idea of, can I change the locks? So exclusive use of the home, the way Michigan law is, there's not a lot of law really solidly on point here, but you definitely have certainly some constitutional rights, the rights to continue to live in your home and not have anybody removing you for no reason. But do you have the right to live there and exclude someone else from coming and going? In other words, can you set it up where your wife's not allowed to come there anymore? Well, you definitely can. So this would go hand in hand with our advice of getting a divorce case filed and filing first. Because once there is a divorce case pending, the court has jurisdiction over your life. They have jurisdiction over really any dispute that might come up. Is probably something that they have the right to rule on, make a decision on, make temporary decisions. So this idea of, I'm living in the home and I don't want my wife coming and going anymore, I'm coming home and finding that she's taking stuff or taking more things or disrupting things or doing who knows what, then you want to set it up where you're the only one that's allowed to stay there. So in other words, once she's out, stay out kind of idea, which sounds kind of crazy, but that's really where people find themselves. And keep in mind, it really benefits both of you. If your wife's not staying there anymore with any regularity, it's going to benefit both of you to have something in place, some meeting of the minds, a mutual understanding of what you're doing. You don't want her just coming and going. You don't want her coming there when you're not home. And really, she's not going to want that either, because as soon as something goes missing or there's some problem or something happens, or somebody left the door unlocked and there was a break-in, or you misplaced something and you automatically assume she stole it. It really protects her as well to have an understanding. If she's not going to be there anymore, you really would want to get a court order in place that gives you exclusive use of the home, and it protects both of you. It lays down what the ground rules are going to be going forward. She's not coming and going as she pleases anymore. Now you could add within this court order, you could put in there that she's allowed to come there with 48 hours notice, or she's allowed to come there to do whatever it might be, something specific. But in general, you're allowed to then change the locks, live there exclusively, be the only one coming and going. And if your wife's coming there, you'd have a heads up on it and you know why she's coming and what's going on. So there's certainly a reasonable request to do that within the boundaries of a divorce case once a divorce is pending. Now, prior to any divorce being filed, of course, there's no right to, if nobody's filed for divorce and your wife has moved out temporarily, you would not have a right legally to just change the locks and keep her from coming there, and nor would she. Same applies here, of course. If your wife was at the home and you had moved out, either because she asked you to or because you decided you wanted to, for whatever reason, you're living elsewhere, she's at the house, same thing. There's no excluding you from coming there. There's no changing the locks. We give that advice from time to time where, a client will ask, well, do I have a right to go to the house? My wife changed the locks. I haven't been staying there for a couple weeks. And you absolutely do. Assuming you're married, whether your name's on the title to the house or not, or even if you're renting, whether you're on the lease or not, if you're married, you have a right to go to that dwelling. You have a right to go to the apartment, the condo, the house, whatever it might be, whether it's something you own or you rent, and you have a right to come and go. And just because your wife has changed the locks doesn't mean that you're not allowed to go there. I mean, quite frankly, you're free to break in if you need to. I mean, I've done it. I can remember years ago I locked myself out of my house, and I broke in. There was no other way into this house other than to break in. So I did that, and you're free to do that. Now, of course, you would not want to be breaking in and causing a confrontation or doing so violently and getting into a big fight. but you're free to come and go. And if someone changes the locks, you're free to break in and change the locks back or do whatever makes sense. So avoiding all that sort of nonsense, of course, it would be good to get ahead of it, have a strategy in place, and once a divorce case has been filed, get an exclusive use of the home court order in place. Now there's an understanding, there's a meeting of the minds. Whoever's in the house is staying in the house. Whoever's out of the house is staying elsewhere, and is not just gonna, they're not gonna be coming and going whenever they want, showing up at 2 a.m. or, coming there when the other person's at work. So that's the sort of thing you want to avoid. That's sort of the gist of this discussion. And, exclusive use of the home, keep in mind that doesn't mean that the other person gives up their right to the home in the divorce, or now they have no right to half the equity or no claim against any of the furniture or any of the property. That's not the case. Just because they've moved out doesn't mean they've given up any rights to any of these other things that you would associate with a home, or whether you own it or rent it, either a right to make a claim against the home, a right to have half the equity in the home, or a right to the furniture or the belongings. Just because you live somewhere else doesn't mean you give all that up. That's not the case. And if your wife moved out, same rule applies. Just because she's moved out doesn't mean, she has a right to, that she's given up a right to make a claim against the home or the contents or anything else. She's just living elsewhere. It certainly can be the case. Living apart can be a way to keep the peace, and we certainly understand that, and we do everything to make all that as doable as possible. And this goes to hand in hand too. It's probably worth mentioning that this idea of living separately like this, it's not something you want to get into, especially if you have kids. You'd want to be cautious here, because moving out can carry a lot of potential problems, bring with it a lot of baggage, and a lot of nonsense that you could have avoided by not moving out. So if you're moving out for really no good reason, because your wife told you to or something like that, you want to be considering what are the options there and what is that going to look like before you move out, if you have minor children. Now, if there's no children, probably not a concern. But with children, if you move out and you're living somewhere else, you're running the risk of custody and parenting time being influenced by that being decided. You're running the risk of child support being an issue. If you live under separate roofs, it's possible for, if you've moved out and your wife has stayed behind and has the kids, it's possible for her to get child support from you, plus you're expected to pay your share of the bills. So you want to avoid this idea of just moving out for no reason. But that's in general what we're talking about here. This whole idea of living apart, living together. In Michigan law, there's no requirement to live together at the beginning of a divorce or during the divorce. Some people live together, some people live apart. Some people have been apart for years when they start the divorce. With some people, they start the divorce and then a couple months later, one of them moves out. That's all reasonable. There's no wrong answer. It depends on what's appropriate for you and your family. If you have children, it's what's appropriate for the children. But we get it. Sometimes you just can't live there. You need to live apart, and then you need to know where your rights are at that point. Does your wife have a right to exclusive use of the home? Do you? How does that look? And if so, if there's minor children, now you need to figure out, what are we doing temporarily here with custody? What's the parenting time schedule going to look like? Am I paying child support, or am I just paying my share of the bill? So you want to look at all that, have all that discussion in place before you move out. Obviously, your wife moves out or has already moved out. You can't do anything about that. That's just the way it is. But you want to know what your rights are if your wife is living elsewhere. So anytime you're in a divorce, pre-divorce stages, beginning of a divorce, middle of it, whatever it might be related to when the divorce is happening, you want to know what your rights are if you're going to be living apart, who's living where, and what right do they have to come and go to each other's home. So that's what you're looking at here, and hopefully that helps. Adam, all we do is divorce. We do divorce and family law. We represent only men, so we can answer any questions. We're experts on all this. We can tell you how this looks and what you're dealing with. We can tell you what it looks like in your particular county, what you can expect, what the process is going to be, what an overview is going to look like, and also if you have specific questions about things, we're here to answer those. You can give us a call, send a text message, send an email, whatever's easier, and we'll do our best to answer your questions and get you feeling a little better about this, because divorce can be a scary process. You don't want to have a bunch of unknowns and a bunch of rumors, and your friends at work are telling you one thing and somebody's telling you something else. You need to get the straight answers, find out the real deal, and that's why we're here. So hopefully we can help with some of that. And if there's any questions, I'm around. Thanks.